Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So at this time, I encourage you to be the knower, observing the kind of mood, as they say in Thai, arom, in Pali, aramana, or the state of mind that you're experiencing at this moment, to be the knower. It is the way it is. So look inward, and just to be the observer. And recognizing the reality that we're experiencing, being incarcerated in our human forms for a lifetime, and we experience the continuous impingement of this through the senses, through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mental states. It's an ongoing, relentless kind of impingement from birth to death. And we're aware of that. So this is like awakening to the way it is. So we're changing from identifying it from the level of me and mine, of the pronouns, possessive pronouns, or identities that we think the body is me, is mine. But it is a condition in nature, it is a sankhara, and we're now recognizing the body in a different way than, say, when we look in a mirror, it arouses vanity, the critical mind. We see ourselves according to standards of beauty and attractiveness, or lack of them. We identify with the gender of the body. We see ourselves as male or female. We identify with things we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. The memories that we have that arise, they're my memories. But now from the Puto level of knowing, direct knowing, is to see it in terms of it is, whatever you're experiencing at this present moment is, all you can say is the way it is. You might say my feeling, my mood, my memory, but this is, leave out the my, it is like this. As is, the way it is. So you're looking at it no longer in terms of personal identity, or judging. It's not about discriminating whether you're feeling good or bad or right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong, true and false, good and bad, but the knower, the Puto, knows at this moment it's like this, the jitta. with anapanasati, there's the knowing of the inhalation and the knowing of the exhalation. This is direct knowing from pure consciousness that isn't being distorted with the perceptions of me and mine and good or bad, right and wrong. Just pointing out, what direct knowing is. Because we usually know about all kinds of things, like modern education is knowing about modern science, technology, history, art, economics. When we go to universities, get degrees, learn to read and write. This is the information age. There's internet, and there's so much information available. We know all about all kinds of things. That's the knowledge we acquire through external sources, through reading, through education, through what teachers tell us. So that's knowing about. We might know all about Buddhism. There are courses, PhDs in Buddhist studies in universities. Know all about Buddhism, Pali language, Chinese, Tibetan, Mahayana, Tibetan Buddhism, the history of Buddhism, but not recognize or not use direct knowing. So acquiring knowledge about Buddhism can arouse faith, can arouse interest. In most of us, we start with the arising of faith or interest in, we hear some Buddhist teaching or read a sutta or meet a Buddhist and they tell us what the Buddha taught, and we become interested. It arouses, that kind of knowledge can arouse faith, can arouse interest. But still, that's not the real Buddha, is when we begin to recognize mindfulness as our refuge. Sati sampajanya. Sati is a Pali word for mindfulness. Sampajanya is like intuition. It's apprehending. It's not specific to an object, but it's knowing the quality of the moment, the atmosphere, the way it is. So consciousness, citta vijnana, is knowing. Its function is knowing. And we are experiencing life through the form, the physical body that we have, through the senses. And then we actually become the conditions that we are experiencing. We become the human body, we become a man or woman, we become young or old according to the thinking mind, the perceptions that we're attached to, the cultural conditioning, the personality views that we hold. The process of becoming. But the Buddha, with this Bhutto mantra, wake up, it's about awakening to the way it is. All conditions are impermanent. So this constant refrain to sape sankhara anicca. Sankhara is like translated as conditions, phenomena. It includes, it's a generic term, so it includes, like sankhara is everything that we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, feel, perceive. Sape sankhara anicca, all conditions are impermanent. And so this isn't saying that impermanence is anything wrong with it. It's not judgmental or trying to make anything out of it, but notice it, awaken to impermanence, because that's what we're actually experiencing through the sensory consciousness, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, perceiving. We're experiencing impermanence. And the knower then, the Puto, is the awareness of change, and that is not impermanent. Like one sankhara can't know another sankhara. But the knowing of sankhara is Buddha knowing Dhamma. So then we get back to the refuges of Bhutang, Dhammang, Sanghang, Namasami. So you see, I'm trying to point out the directness. It's a very direct teaching. It's quite simple, really. Sometimes when we look at the scriptures, the Abhidhamma, it looks so complicated. There's so much to learn. It's vast. But in terms of meditation, the Buddha simplified everything for us by saying, Sape sankhara anicca, all conditions are impermanent. Otherwise, we're conditioned to see the conditions as self, as good, bad, right, and wrong. We are not noticing, we're not aware of the impermanence of conditions, but we're getting caught up in our interest or our boredom or our liking or disliking the conditions we're experiencing. And then that is the suffering of the First Noble Truth. The not understanding, not knowing reality. We are living in this world that we create out of delusion, out of ignorance. So there's three characteristics of phenomena. All phenomena is impermanent, is unsatisfactory, it's dukkha, it's anatta, it's not self. So anatta is, the continuous question is, well, what is it that knows if it's not self? You know, what is Puto, is that self, or is that my real self? Or we're trying to perceive a self, a subject that knows the object. But this is where the Buddha Dhamma Sangha are valuable references, because Buddha is not self. It's not mine or yours or anybody's. We take refuge in Bhutto, in Bhutang, Saranang Gacchami. We're not taking refuge in the perception of a Buddha or some mystical force out in the universe, something that we can perceive as some kind of Buddha nature that is vast and out there that we take refuge in as this person, this form, this body. But we're taking refuge in the awareness, awakened, conscious attention in the present. So now, just like listening, you're listening to my voice, how does it affect you when I talk like this? You know, is it just so you know? Does it make you think more, or Do you feel confused or wondering what I'm talking about, or do you understand it? Or, I mean, I'm not asking you to understand, but just be the observer. So you become, so you're noticing, you're awakening to the present moment, not to, in order to pass judgment on what you're hearing, but to recognize it's like this. When Ajahn Sumedho talks like this, this is what I experience is like this. Trust that kind of knowing. It is what it is. Whether it's you want to consider it positive or negative is not the issue. It's not about the quality anymore, but the reality of impermanence. The conditions are like this. This is a retreat, weekend retreat here at Wat Bodhiwana. There's monastic, there are Ajahn Kalyano's monks, Ajahn Kusalo from New Zealand, Ajahn Asoko, myself. This is the conditions that you're experiencing, the presence of monastic sangha in a temple, Buddhist temple, Uposatha hall, and the lay community, the upasok, upasikas in Australia. And so the conventions are like, this is Australia, this is Wat Bodhiwana, this is Ajahn Sumedho, Ajahn Kalyano. These are the conventional realities that, and it's not, when one isn't trying to pass judgment on the conventions, but just know they are, they're not what they seem. When we just operate from convention, then we're operating from ignorance only, without wisdom, where the potential for all of us is to awaken to Paramatta Satya, to ultimate reality, to Dhamma. And the Buddha's teaching is a very skillful instrument pointing at ultimate reality. It's not condemning conventional reality. It's not. We're not trying to annihilate the world or the conventional realm or the self, but to awaken individuals like ourselves to ultimate reality, Paramatta Satya, deathless reality. So the First Noble Truth, as I was reflecting on it this morning, seeing suffering, dis-ease, doubt, worry, whatever form it takes, from physical pain, physical discomfort, to emotional confusion, to belief or disbelief. Now we're looking at suffering as noble truth rather than nasty fact of life, that we want to get rid of it, want to find happiness. The second noble truth is the origin of suffering. Suffering is not ultimate, is not Paramatta Satya, is not ultimate reality. It's a characteristic of conditioned phenomena. It's not it's not a negative kind of saying that life is just massive suffering and misery, and just get on with life as best you can, resign yourself to a life of suffering. The Buddha isn't saying that. He's taking suffering because it is the common experience of humanity, and encouraging us to reflect on it, to understand it, to notice it, to awaken to dukkha, not as a person anymore, like my suffering, my feelings, my pain, but it is the way it is, whether it's physical, emotional, mental. It's a sankhara. There's the knowing of sankhara. So the origin of suffering is of course, ignorance of Dhamma. Avijja is the Pali word for not knowing the Four Noble Truths, 3 aspects, 12 insights into these Noble Truths. So each Noble Truth has 3 aspects to it, and 3 times 4 is 12. 12 insights, which would mean that then that would be the completion of the Eightfold Path. So ignorance isn't about being illiterate or not knowing very much about the world, but it is about not understanding suffering, not taking time to accept what you're feeling in the present, to allow it to be what it is. And your attitude is knowing it. It is the way it is. And if you accept it, allow it to be what it is, you'll be aware that it's impermanent. It's not self-sustaining. It's not ultimate reality. Any emotion, any mood, when one is depressed, it seems like it will be forever. When one is happy, one would like it to be forever. So happiness creates desire to perpetuate and then kind of hang on and be happy forever, and unhappiness is we want to get rid of it. We don't like it. But the knower of like and dislike is mindfulness, is Puto, knowing the way it is, Dhammo. All conditions are impermanent. Now the second noble truth then, the origin or the cause of suffering is ignorance, which gives rise to desire and attachment to desire. So you have the Dhamma is the Pali word for desire, and the attachment, the upatan, or the clinging to desire. Now, the Buddha lists 3 kinds of desire in the second noble truth, which is very helpful because in English, desire always has kind of pejorative connotation. Like if you say someone has a lot of desires, it's not usually good desires or altruistic ones. It usually means sensual desires, whatnot. But the word Dhamma, translated generally into English as desire, Kama Dhamma, Bhava Dhamma, Vibhava Dhamma. And Kama Dhamma is sensual desire, desire for sense pleasures through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. So this is the way the sense world is. The sense world is a sensitive realm. So there's beauty and then ugliness, there's pleasant sounds and cacophonous ones, there's noise, there's pleasant fragrances and bad odors and good tastes and unpleasant tastes in the tongue, feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain through the body. The perceptions, the memories can bring happiness or can bring depression accordingly. So sankhara is affecting consciousness. and with the desire to experience sensory pleasures speaks for itself. But the knowing of Kama Danha is not Danha. The ability to know, to recognize Kama Danha, or sensual sense desire, is like this. It's not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's looking at it for what it really is, because Kama Danha is a condition, it's a sankhara, rising, ceasing. Then the Bhava Danha, which is being desired to become or get something you don't have. Like with meditation, there's a lot of Bhava Danha, desire to attain, to get the jhanas, to become a stream enterer or an arahant. These kind of perceptions create this Bhava Danha, desire for attainment. But Bhava Danha is also is Danha, is desire. It's a condition, it's impermanent. And we can recognize that in ourselves, that desire to get something we don't have. It might be a desire to become an arahant is a good desire, it's not bad desire. But coming from avijja, or ignorance of Dhamma, not knowing Dhamma, then it leads to suffering, because we can't become an arahant through desire. And so the Buddha is pointing to realize desire. It's not about suppressing it or judging it, but recognizing Danha, Kama Danha, Bhava Danha. And then the third category is Vibhava Danha, desire to get rid of. So you want to get rid of anger, get rid of fear, get rid of doubt, is Vibhava Danha, which is the third kind of desire. And there's the knowing of that, of knowing this desire to annihilate or get rid of or destroy or suppress desires. And so the knowing of desire, the knower of desire is Bhutto, the mindfulness, panya, wisdom, that knows desire as sankhara, and that the grasping, the clinging, the upatan, the grasping of desire is the cause of suffering. The grasping of desire out of avijja, out of ignorance, is the cause of dukkha. So the insight into the second noble truth is first to let go of desire is not to suppress it. It's not another kind of hopeless vibhava danha, desire to get rid of desire. That is impossible to get rid of desire through ignorance, through the desire to get rid of it. You just go around in circles. It's to know desire. Kama danha is like this. Bhava danha is like this. Vibhava danha is like this. I found this very revealing in my own practice, because I was very much, I used to say my middle name before I became a monk was Vibhava Danha. Robert Vibhava Danha, because I was always trying to get rid of things, suppressing things, wanting to get rid of bad thoughts, get rid of anger, get rid of fears and jealousies and worries, wanting to attain, wanting to feel bliss and eternal happiness, fearlessness, all the kind of marvelous qualities that one would like to identify with. But in the process, there's always this other side, that what we call the shadow or the dark side, that we want to get rid of or we're frightened of. We have emotions that we despise in ourselves. We feel guilty about them. Tendencies, karmic tendencies or attitudes that we can be very averse to and see as something wrong, something bad about us. So then the vipavadana, desire to get rid of it, which usually leads to, out of ignorance, the following vipavadana is we suppress, we deny, we refuse that side of ourselves. And then, of course, the result is always dukkha, suffering. Because you have to spend so much energy and exhausting trying to control the mind and get rid of the bad and hold on to the good. I mean, it's the control freak syndrome, where we're trying to create the illusions of happiness, success, security by denying the other side. And that is suffering. So much of a modern society is because of this desire to control everything and keep in control. One of our fears, psychological fears, is losing control. Losing control in Western life oftentimes is like having a nervous breakdown, or it's like you're a failure if you have a nervous breakdown because you lost control, where the more heroic figures are in control all the time, don't have breakdowns. But seeing like nervous breakdowns can be actually a liberating experience. When we see it in a different way, when we lose control, then we have to change our attitude. And with Dhamma, with Buddha Dhamma, we're looking at it with wisdom rather than seeing it as personal failure. Where in the worldly sense, the worldly attitude is that's some kind of personal defect, some kind of something wrong with you. If you can't keep in control, if you can't be one up on that, on fear and desires. So we create a sense of despair or depression, or we burn out with all our obsessive need to control everything. And that's dukkha, that's suffering. So the cause of suffering isn't desire, it's ignorance and attachment to desire. We're living in a desire realm. The human body is a desire form. You know, it's the nature of the sense world is to create desire, why are flowers beautiful? You know, because they attract us. We want to have beautiful flowers around us. We want to have delicious food and incense and perfume, and the best that the sense world offers creates a desire. It's just the way it is. Seeing the beauty, it creates a desire to have it. But the knowing of desire, this is the Buddho, knowing the way it is, Dhammo. So you're now operating from the wisdom level rather than just trying to control everything and get rid of the bad things and try to hold on to the good, and in the process become exhausted and depressed. Burnt out is a common term for what people experience these days in modern life. So you can see why at this time, 2016, there's the Western world, countries like Australia, New Zealand, the European countries, the United States, and countries that before had no interest in Buddhism, never showed any interest or even desire to understand it, and just dismissed it as an old religion from China or a place like that. Why the Buddha's teaching resonates with modern life so well. It's not just, it's not about ancient India or China. It's about being human. And whether it's in ancient India or modern Australia, well, the human element's pretty much the same thing. What the Four Noble Truths are pointing at isn't cultural, of cultural interest. It's about being a human being. And the opportunity that we have as human beings to learn, to awaken, to use wisdom with our lives rather than just be helplessly caught in the sea of ignorance and suffering. So the lives of human beings are, and I look at humanity in general, I see every human being has potential for enlightenment. A better way to look at people and just see them as, they're worried about overpopulation and there's, these problems of immigration, migrants and refugees. We see it always as a problem rather than every one of these beings has this potential for awakening to Dhamma, awakening to reality. Whether they're aware of it or not, something else. So we're the fortunate ones, the fact that we have this, we're sitting here at Bodhiwana with opportunity to reflect on the teachings of the Buddha. Because the teachings that I'm talking about are the first sermon. It's not like modern Buddhism or Ajahn Sumedho's Buddhism or Western Buddhism. It's from the tradition that the Buddha established. That still is operative, still works, still is practical, as you can see here at the Wat Bodhiwana. The insight from this reflecting on the second noble truth is letting go of desire. Letting go is what the Buddha recommends, points to for the practice, Bhatipata, the letting go of desire. To let go of desire, you have to know what desire is. So just trying to suppress desires, I said before, is another form of desires. So it's not a destruction or denial, annihilation of desire. These three categories the Buddha gave, Gamadana, Bhavadana, Vipuvadana, are very useful to reflect on because, at least I found it so, that it gives a wider perspective on the nature of Dhamma. It's wanting or not wanting. And when you want something, when you desire something, there's a knowing. And each one of us know I desire this or desire that, or I desire to get rid of anger, desire to get rid of fear. it's like this. Desire to get rid of fear is, you know, that you see it as maybe some kind of, on a personal level, as some weakness, something wrong with yourself, or changing from the personal, the ego level, to the wisdom level, you're seeing vipavandanha, desire to get rid of fear. And so you're looking at it no longer from judgment, from like or dislike, but observing the way it is. It's impermanent. Desire to get rid of fear is a sankhara that comes and goes. You don't always have fear. When the conditions for it arise, then you're accustomed to feeling frightened, and you see it as, and you grasp the fear, and you become a frightened person. So the insight then is to let go, which is to relax, really. It's not getting rid of fear, it's relaxing that grasp, that blind, controlling grasping that becomes our habit in regards to that particular quality when it arises. Fear, like sexual desire, fear, and anger, aversion are kind of primal emotions. They're natural to this realm, like sexual desire, the procreate the species. This is a natural desire, a nature of the body. The species is to procreate this procreation. Anger or aversion is a kind of survival mechanism. In the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, learning how to avoid the dangers and protecting the young cubs or the children or whatever. Anger, aversion, sexual desire, fear. There's a lot to fear in this realm, isn't there? Our human forms are easily damaged. There's so many possibilities to experience physical pain or humiliation in daily life. As a vulnerable human form, there's a lot to fear. So we have what we call civilization, where we make rules and have laws to kind of, so it's not survival of the fittest so much as it's not law of the jungle. We have rules and laws and moral precepts and that we agree to, so that we punish the criminals, the criminal elements, the one that break the law. We try to educate our children, our population, to be law-abiding citizens. So there's this illusion of safety and security, but in spite of that, even under the best conditions, fear is primal to this realm. But the awareness of fear, this is Bhutto, knowing the condition. Fear is a condition. It's not ultimate reality. It arises and ceases. And when you begin to take refuge, when you see the significance of Bhutang Saranang Gacchami, when that begins to really take root in you, then you can relate to fear as a sankhara rather than just be caught in trying to get rid of it or run away, or see it as some kind of, always some kind of personal defect. So letting go, to let go of something, you have to know what you're grasping. And in this second noble truth, this is very clearly stated: Kama Dhanha, Bhava Dhanha, Vibhava Dhanha, desire. But we're now looking at desire. And so mindfulness of desire, seeing it in terms of the three characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Desire, kama, dhanha, is impermanent. There's no soul or self in it. There's nothing that you can say is really yours, no matter how sensual you think you are. But when you look at kama, dhanha, sensual desire, it arises and ceases according to conditions. And the knowing of kama dhanha is not dhanha. It's bhutto, giving it a name, but it's not a self. It's not my bhutto or your bhutto. It's knowing. And recognize the significance of this knowing. It's Buddha knowing reality. It's not me as a person awakening to Dhamma. It's much more direct than that way of thinking. Bhava Dhanha is aspiration, maybe, become enlightened, is a good desire. It can be political ambition, desire to become Prime Minister of Australia or something like this. Desire to be a success and attain, win the Nobel Peace Prize or the Academy Award or whatever. Desire for respect and appreciation from others. So this Bhava Dhanha is then seen. This is aware of Bhava Dhanha is not Dhanha. It's bhutto. It's awareness with wisdom. Knowing the nature of Bhava Dhanha, it's changing. When you accept it for what it is, recognize it, then you're aware of it as it is. It's an impermanent condition, sankhara. This is knowing the reality of sankhara is impermanent. Vibhava Dhanha, we want to get rid of our kilesas, our defilements. And this is the way the thinking mind works. Get rid of the defilements, get rid of anger, get rid of fear, jealousy, egotism, conceit, get rid of the bad side. Is the way we think. The thinking mind is about good and bad, right and wrong. But with mindfulness, where it's not about getting rid of, but understanding that this Vibhava Dhanha is a desire to get rid of something that we don't like and don't want, that's an obstruction to a practice. So Vibhava Dhanha is a sankhara, and we become aware, and then the insight is letting go of Vibhava Dhanha, which is not getting rid of it, but not grasping it anymore, setting it down. Like the hand, human hand, for example. You've got a thumb opposed to four fingers. It's made for grasping. So, when you see protests and neo-Nazi movements and these kind of things, it's always fists in the air, shaking the fists, because it's trying to fight, to destroy, to get rid of. That's a form of grasping, isn't it? And then the relaxed hand, and you're not cutting off the hand or the fist, but you're learning to relax the hand, let go of this tension that you make through this desire to get rid of the enemy. So it's just learning to investigate in this way, just this desire of the second noble truth. The insight will come to let go of this tense holding, this blind, ignorant holding of desire. You see, you have the insight, what they call jnana, knowledge, jnana-dassana, insight, knowledge. It's not knowledge you acquire from outside. It's knowledge through insight, through knowing directly, through direct knowing, rather than through believing what you're being told or what you read in the scriptures. So each noble truth has the three aspects to each noble truth. The first noble truth there is suffering, a statement, a matter-of-fact statement that you find in the scripture, in the Pali scripture in the first sermon. There is suffering. That's like Bhariyati Dhamma, that's the scriptural teaching. Then there's the prescription, what to do about dukkha. To understand it is the second aspect to the First Noble Truth. So this is patipada, this is the putting it into practice to understand suffering. Is what you do with is the First Noble Truth. You get the Bhariyati teaching from the scripture, then you're no longer looking at the book or the scripture, but you're looking here at your own heart, your own soul, your center, where you feel life. And you begin to look at that, the feeling of dis-ease or wanting or not wanting or worry or whatever extreme form it might take or mild form. It should be, you understand it. To understand something, you have to accept it for what it is. So you're allowing it to be what it is, and then you have the third aspect, the insight, the jnana-dassana, insight. Suffering has been understood. You know this from a gut level. You know, it's not just the Buddha said to let go. It's knowing this suffering, understanding it, and the insight, knowledge arises, which is bhati-wait, or result of the practice of bhati-bhata. So there's these three aspects, the Bhariyati Dhamma, bhati-bhat, and bhati-wait. So this is the form of reflection. It's our ability with the human mind to reflect on something, to reflect, to observe, to take suffering as a noble truth and observe it, to understand it, to know it. Then the second noble truth, the origin of suffering, the cause, it has an arising, it is not permanent, it has a beginning and end. And so the cause of suffering, the origin of suffering is this ignorance of Dhamma, ignorance, the desires that arise in ignorance, and the grasping of desire, the Gamadana, Bhavadana, Vipavadana. This is in the Bhariyati Dhamma, the scriptural teaching, And then the bhati is to let go, the practice, the meditation practice of letting go. Letting go of desire is like this. Then the bhati is the insight in desire has been let go of. You know what it's like not to be grasping desire. It's like this. It's direct knowing. It's not, I think I know anymore. It's insight knowing. So this, if you pursue this, and it takes determination, because we might be interested and then we become disillusioned or bored with it. But don't believe what your mind says, so don't depend on inspiration to meditate. Because then you'll only you'll only think you can meditate when you're feeling good or everything's going well or you're inspired. But Luang Por Chah used to say, good meditation's good, bad meditation's good. So I hear people say, I had a really good meditation the other day. I was just blissed out, so happy, but today it was terrible, bad meditation. What am I doing wrong? And then good meditation is good, bad meditation is good. And to know, like the other day I had good meditation is a memory in the present, it's a sankhara. So I think, I had really got somewhere. I really had good samadhi, and I felt rapture and bliss and inspiration. Good meditation is, but then you can't sustain that kind of feeling. It changes. Good meditation is impermanent. Bad meditation is impermanent. And this is where the trusting in the knowing of conditioned phenomena is Buddha knowing Dhamma, knowing reality. And this is our refuge. Again, Bhutang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. I always advise people not to believe what their mind says, because your personality is very deceitful. I'm not criticizing any of you, but personality in general, it's habit patterns. It deceives us, it lies to us. So some people think I'm no good at meditation. Don't believe that. That's just your personality telling you a lie. It is what it is, it is a sankhara, but we too easily believe what we're thinking without reflection, without wisdom. Or people will say, Buddhists, will say, I don't have the barami. I'm not, I haven't developed the barami. They think Ajahn Sumedho has a lot of barami, so he can do it, So you kind of elevate me into kind of special kind of human being. But, and then you think of yourself as, I'm not like him. This is all creation of your own thought. You create this Ajahn Sumedho and yourself someone with barami, someone without barami is sankhara. You see. So you can't believe that. It's not a matter of believing these thoughts. They are what they are. But the wisdom level is to see them in terms of what they really are, as sankharas in the present. Some are true, some are not true, some are inspiring, some are defeating, like being self-critical, seeing always that you're not good enough, or you're not advanced enough, or you don't have what it takes is a creation that you make in your mind. You make that world that you are inadequate, and you can't believe that. So this evening, just trying to encourage you to trust in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, to see it, to internalize Buddha Dhamma Sangha, not just repeat the Pali phrases, but it's practical. It works for you. It's reality itself if you internalize it rather than just say it or believe in Buddha Dhamma Sangha through just non-reflecting, through grasping the ideas of it. So that's enough for this evening. I offer this. Hopefully it encourages you in the practice during this weekend.